You think, who is the best girl in that anime? Well, you're probably right, and let's talk about that. What's up, guys? It's your boy, and today we are going to be discussing the ever-contentious topic of the best girl in an anime, and why your selection for whoever the best girl in that contentious anime is probably right. And the person who disagrees with you and has chosen another girl, they're probably right too. As to why, I think the intricacies of is actually pretty interesting, and I've narrowed it down to two categories. But before I talk about what those two categories are, I just want to say a couple things. First off, if you are one of the people who left a comment on the most recent video that I posted before this one, just want to say thank you guys. I read all the comments. Just a ton of support. The YouTube algorithm kind of carried that one, and it meant a ton. If you are new here, and you did not subscribe and the YouTube algorithm didn't lead you to that previous video, which it did for many, go ahead and click like and then maybe subscribe on this one. Answering a bunch of anime questions, got some Japan vlogs coming up, a lot of great content in store, so I'd love if you join me on that journey. For now though, let's discuss this ever important topic. So, there's two different categories which make up a best girl in my opinion. And I think when I say best girl, I don't want you to think that I'm talking about any in particular, because best girl as a concept I think is actually broader than you guys might think. So I'm going to take a really broad concept to talk about the broad community of best girls that are out there. And I'm going to say one word, and I'm going to describe it because you might think surface level it means one thing, and it does not. And that word is cute. A best girl has to be cute. And you might think that I'm meaning, oh, that means they have to be the most like cutesy moe type character, or they have to have a lot of good fan service moments, or what have you. And I don't think that's the case, because cute, in kind of the overarching term of things, I think goes much, much deeper than that, and I think it applies to many different characters. And I'm gonna take Marin from My Dress-Up Darling as a good example of this. So Marin from Dress Up Darling, I don't think's an objectively perfect character. I think the one with the best personality, the most like does everything right character in My Dress Up Darling is Gojo. I think I'll talk about that in a later video at some other time, because it's a really interesting dynamic that they have set up in Dress Up Darling, but the point would be, at this point, is that Marin's not perfect. And yet we still kind of cling to her as a best girl. And I think it's because the way that she kind of sees the world in this kind of geeky lens is very relatable to a lot of people, and that relatability can lead to kind of a cuteness about her, right? That doesn't just apply to Marin, because not every best girl in a show is going to be like the gamer who likes anime. Let's take something a little bit more complicated. Say Rei Ayanami, personal favorite of mine, and I just had to talk about Evangelion. She is a very quiet character. She doesn't do a lot of talking, and yet I know a lot of Rei Ayanami fans out there. There's also Asuka fans. Two completely different characters. Asuka's more of kind of a tsundere, while Rei actually goes under a label, I think it's yundere. I think the reason that a lot of people like Rei as a character and say that she's better than Asuka, and myself included in this, is that she has a natural curiosity about the world. She just kind of sees the world in a different view. She doesn't have a lot of personality, but she's still curious about things and sees the world from a lens of, oh, what's that? I want to know what that is. And you see that thing, and she kind of latches onto those things and kind of builds upon them. And you see that kind of personality built upon even in the Rebuild movies that came much later than the original series. But then you might be like, well, I'm an Asuka fan. What's the deal, man? Is she not a best girl at all to you? Well, hold on a second, because Asuka is very much a tsundere, but tsunderes, I think, are a really kind of interesting niche part of this entire genre of best girl, because tsunderes, the way that they operate in a show is that they are very antagonistic towards typically the MC of a show, and what they do is they're like, I don't actually like you, and they end up, actually liking him. Crazy concept, I know. But specifically with, like, the case of Asuka, is she is using her kind of boldness, her arrogance, to get at a much deeper point. And I think that that is also admirable in its own sense. So when I look at the concept of cuteness in terms of best girl, and this is the main point, I think, overall of the best girl wars, but I think the second one goes along very much with it, is that even having a personality that is kind of cute might not even necessarily be enough. It's what they do with the cuteness of their personality and what makes it different. And that's why you see a lot of shows with multiple different girls and people latch on to different ones. There's a lot of the time, there's no clear best girl in a show. There may be one that stands out as more perfect, but not often is there like a best girl that is by far the best and nobody competes. I think Rent a Girlfriend is a good example of this. You could take something like Quintessential Quintuplets, name a rom-com show, and there's best girl candidates that people will fight over. And the reason why they fight over them is because they all have cute personalities in their own right. And I think that a lot of the times you still like both characters. I still like Asuka in Evangelion, even though she's not my favorite character. And, you know, if there was another girl in Dress Up Darling that was seriously competing for the love of Gojo, I think there may be a case to be made for her as well. But there's not. Marin's pretty much the only one there. There's kind of hints of other things, but it doesn't really matter. But I think this ties into the second point really well as to how we're able to kind of latch on to this cuteness aspect of what makes a best girl, and that is the bluntness of things. I was thinking about finding like a psychological study or something like that. I like throwing them in there on occasion, but I think the point makes itself. Do you, as a human being, not as an anime fan, as a human being, enjoy being loved? I know this is crazy, but I would say that I do. I enjoy the concept of being loved and finding love to the point where I think that that is a key element as to why best girl wars exist. I think being able to figure out that a character loves the MC, seeing that and then saying, all right, they've entered the war, they're putting their stake forward, I like this girl now because she fights for his love in this way. And I say that because in the real world, it can be hard to determine if somebody actually likes you. In anime, however, the girls, even if they're tsundere types, it's typically very clear that the girl still likes the main character. And I think that this kind of bluntness is something that's very kind of relatable for people who want to be told that they're loved, to the point where they see the personality and they latch on to a specific character because they know that they are pursuing the main character, even if their personality is not initially making that clear. I think a good kind of ambiguous example of this would come from Bunny Girl Senpai with Mai, because she doesn't really show her affection as outwardly as other kind of best girl candidates, but people still really like Mai, and it's because she has this sharp sense of wit around the fact that she still likes the main character, and it's a slow, much slower build than most. And I don't think that's spoiling the show that she likes the main character, and I don't think that that's a spoiler, because even though it kind of might get into things in 2 or 3 episodes of the show and kind of build upon the nature of the romance, even up front, from the moment it starts, you know that she's gonna have this kind of sharp wit, don't go too far main character because you get on my nerves kind of personality, but you're like, oh yeah, she totally likes him. And it's just the bluntness of anime and how it builds its character archetypes. And I think that the cuteness of the characters and the personality and how they display themselves, combined with this bluntness of knowing they are going to be a character that cares about the main character in a way that I want to be cared for, combined make any best girl candidate that you might have a valid one. Unless they are actively antagonizing. Yanderes are a weird case. Don't make me talk about how yanderes are actually really cute. Don't do that, please. But in general, I think that a normal, healthy romance is really cool in an anime, and that's why I think 99% of best girls are legitimate candidates as long as they are not doing active harm and they're not going to kill somebody to protect the MC. Is that reasonable? Well, actually, I'll leave that up to you guys. Leave a comment down below as to why yanderes are actually sane if you really want to. I probably will not agree with that opinion, but in general, if you have your pick for tsundere, if you have your pick for a yundere, if you have a pick for any best girl, leave a comment as to why you think they're a best girl in a show, or just as to why maybe you disagree with my premise. I'd love to read your comments. I read all of them. And that is all from me for today. Japan vlogs are coming up soon, so keep an eye out for those. I just met with my editor this week about them, so they're on their way, I promise. And I will see you guys in the next video.